Government has stepped in, at least in this country, and done all the work for the church. And so the person who's in need they look to the government for the answer, not God. And I think in that way, government has done an injustice that's even bigger than just the creation of an entitlement welfare state. I think it's even bigger. And in this setting, I'll share the story. I think it interrupts the opportunity for people to come to a saving knowledge of who God is.
Has anyone seen Mark Green's DD 214?
Curtis, is Mark's wife and girlfriend gonna sit together? Yeah? Are they okay? Is that what family, faith, and freedom means? Family, faith, and freedom means you can have a wife and a girlfriend.
House Representative Mark Green, a Republican from Tennessee, has just announced his retirement on Monday after voting for the big, beautiful bill. But why did he announce this retirement so suddenly? Well, several sources told Not Us that Green had been actively pitching lobbyists in Washington on a business opportunity that they wouldn't want to miss out on in Guyana, South America. And for those of you who aren't yet familiar with Guyana, I fear that you will become more familiar with this country in the coming years. And the reason for this is that Guyana, which is situated along the northeastern coast of South America, right next to Venezuela and Brazil, is loaded with oil. The oil was found recently. Venezuela is already trying to fight Guyana for the oil, and you best believe that both the United States and China are already all up in there trying to manage this liquid gold mine and get a cut of the profits. Apparently, this includes now almost former Representative Mark Green. Now, Guyana is what you would call a third world or developing nation. So whenever a highly coveted resource is discovered in one of these countries, you kind of anticipate that that resource will get exploited by more powerful nations. And maybe that is pessimistic, but Guyana is hopeful, of course, that the oil will bring wealth and prosperity to the country and to its people. But as more and more American and Chinese business people and corporations get involved, we're already starting to see that wealth get exported out of the country. It also helps that Guyana, which is a former British colony, is the only English-speaking country in South America, so business dealings are made a little bit easier. But for everyone who tries to guess my ethnicity on the internet, my family is actually from Guyana. About half of the Guyanese population is East Indian, again because of the British Empire, and the second largest majority is Black. Guyana currently has a young president who is eager to manage Guyana's newfound resource and potential wealth in a way that benefits the country and its people. However, Guyana is just coming off of several decades of political and racial instability. A lot of that was due to foreign interference, by the way, by the American CIA, but that is a story for another day. But back to Representative Mark Green. Green actually announced his resignation from Guyana, but sources told Not Us that Green had always been quote-unquote super cagey regarding the business venture that he was involved in. Still, Green was actively seeking investors for this business deal, whatever it is, using his congressional connections to do so. From Not Us, on at least 2 occasions, according to a source briefed on the situations, lobbyists who were visiting Green for what they believed were legislative meetings were surprised to find themselves on the other end of the conversation. It was Green who had something to sell them, a mysterious business opportunity. This source told Not Us that both lobbyists found the situation strange and left without pursuing the opportunity. So apart from the caginess of it all, there's also the ethical aspect of a sitting congressperson soliciting investments for a private business venture and using congressional connections to do this. Also, how and why did Green accept a job while remaining in office? Apart from ethics experts, other congresspeople like Republican Representative David Joyce are upset with the way Green chose to leave his position. He said, "When you get elected to this job and you take an oath of office, you have only one concern, the best interest of the country. So you can't really have divided loyalties when it comes to doing this job correctly." Another GOP congressperson said, "What the F? How do you line up a job before you resign? Elise Stefanik couldn't leave to go to the United Nations because our margins were so small, but he can go into the private sector?" Well, to that point, there are questions around a conflict of interest, especially since Green has just announced his imminent retirement. He's not retired yet. He says that he's staying on until the conclusion of the reconciliation bill. Kedrick Payne, the Campaign Legal Center's vice president, general counsel, and senior director of ethics, told Not Us that it is extremely strange for a member to have a job lined up in the private sector that they have announced and then continue to say they're going to vote on a bill that is not necessarily imminent. You want your member of Congress to prioritize the public interest, and if they seem distracted by a future job, it brings the question whether or not they are prioritizing their constituents, Payne said. As for Green, he says there's nothing to worry about because what else would he say? And he says that he has done everything ethically and by the book. Regarding the mysterious job that he took, the job that he won't disclose, therefore obscuring whether or not there could actually be a conflict of interest between his new job and his remaining work as a lawmaker, Green said in a press release that he was offered an opportunity in the private sector that was too exciting to pass up. Regarding the ethics of seeking investments for his new business venture while still sitting in Congress, Green defended himself, saying that he had never solicited a lobbyist or executive to purchase a company I own or am planning to own or am planning to work for. I have completed the required House ethics forms for all companies that I have started or negotiated with for board memberships and post-employment work. I will say that it's nice to see some opposition from Republicans on this one regarding the ethics of what Green has done and is doing, the potential conflict of interest, etc. Of course, they seem to be downplaying, although it has been mentioned, that this puts the Republican Party in a bit of a precarious position. The Republicans have a thin majority in the House as it is, and when Green leaves, Republicans will only be able to lose 3 votes on party line bills. With the recent spate of Republicans seemingly willing to vote against party lines, this should be very concerning for Speaker Johnson. Also, things aren't necessarily looking great for Republicans right now if all of those rowdy Republican town halls are any indication that Republican voters are getting fed up with their representatives in government. That said, it's likely that Green's seat will be filled eventually by another Republican, as the district that he serves is reliably red. Still, those replacements, they don't happen overnight. Furthermore, Green is currently the chair of the House Homeland Security Committee. With his departure, Republican Representative Michael McCall from Texas will likely take over for Green until a replacement can be found in 2026. But Green feels as though he has done his job in the position that he had. He had spoken of leaving Congress in the recent past, but agreed to stay on in order to help secure the border via the reconciliation bill. He feels he's done that, so he's fine with leaving now. And yeah, it makes total sense for a representative from the landlocked state of Tennessee to be so concerned with the border and so involved with border security, because sure, why not? So I hate this story because it confirms something that I have long believed would happen. Anytime a more poor or less developed country strikes metaphoric gold, it puts a beacon over that country, attracting all kinds of leeches and opportunists from abroad. Prior to finding this oil, Guyana wasn't particularly industrious, or it wasn't known for its industry. They produce a lot of bauxite and gold, actual gold, not liquid gold, and they have a lot of sugarcane down there. So your Demerara sugar and the Demerara rum that's going to be in all your daiquiris this summer, that comes from Guyana. But before, whenever I would mention Guyana, most people thought I was talking about either Ghana or Guinea. No, this is a country that most people just were not concerned about, to the point that they didn't even recognize it when I would say the name. If people would ask me where I'm from, I would just say Connecticut, which is true, that's where I was born, even though that was obviously not what they were asking me. If people would ask if I was Indian, I would say, yeah, technically, but I'm in the diaspora. I usually wouldn't bother to explain it any further than that because I'm not always trying to educate people on British imperialism. But that aside, I am an unapologetic gatekeeper because once people, Americans specifically, get hip to something, they just do not know how to be cool about it. They immediately exploit it. They immediately diminish it. They immediately make things more difficult and more expensive for locals and for the people whose culture or food or whatever they have co-opted. They treat cultures as trends, which is incredibly disrespectful and dismissive. I mean, there's a reason why Wakanda didn't tell anyone about their vibranium, and look at what happened to them as soon as someone found out about it. In Wakanda, despite being a fictional place, was in a much better position to defend itself from outside intrusions than most countries that often get exploited by bigger, richer, and stronger nations. Perhaps in the best case scenario, Guyana's tourism industry will flourish in a way that doesn't damage its natural ecosystem. We're already seeing that that's not the case though, as the rainforests in the interior are being destroyed to make way for resorts, but we can hope maybe that there's a balance somewhere between nature and industry that can be struck. In the best case scenario, the money from Guyana's gold rush would go back to its people and to its communities, not to American congresspeople like Mark Green, not to the Chinese, not to giant oil and gas corporations. But again, we're seeing that that isn't the case already. In a perfect world, the oil and gas leaders of the world would help Guyana to manage this resource and protect its interests, something that Guyana is already aware they will need help with. The question now is, how much will Guyana have to sacrifice for that council and for those protections? All right, that is it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.